God answers prayers. There are so many instances in the Bible where you can find examples of people who prayed and God answered their prayers. Look, for example, when the Jews were about to be executed in the time of Esther, and Esther declared a 3-day fast for the Jews so that they will not be annihilated, you know. And they prayed, and the Lord saved them from the malice of Haman, when Haman wanted to extinguish all the Jews. And they prayed, and the Lord had, and the trap that Haman had for the Jews, the trap that he had dug for Mordecai is where he fell, and all the Jews were saved. Those are some of the examples of how God answered prayers. You look back at the story of people like the people of Nineveh, the story of Jonah, who God had declared destruction over them. But when the people had what the judgment the Lord had spoken over them, they went down in sackcloths and they prayed. The whole nation fasted. All nation fasted, plus all the animals. No, nothing was given food. They turned their plates out upside down and sought the Lord and repented from their sins. And the Lord relented from his judgment, from his punishment. He had mercy on them. Those are just some of the examples of people who prayed, and there are so many examples. So God does answer prayers, but my question is, what if there's something you're asking for or something you're trusting for, and God does not answer you the way you wanted him to answer? What if God does not give you what you are asking for? Does he cease to be a good God? Does he cease to be a faithful God because he did not answer what you're asking for? Daniel, Meshach, and Abednego are example of people who stood on the Lord's side. They stood upon the word of the Lord. They stood on the side of the Lord without wavering, whether or not they got what they wanted. When they were being sent into the fiery furnace by the king, the three boys, there was that Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, when they were put in the fiery furnace in the book of Daniel, it reached a point where they said that they're not going to bow to the king, where they were told to worship the king, and they said they're not going to bow to the king. They only had one God. And they told the king that, let us just let you know, I'm summarizing, that we will not bow to worship you. The God that we are serving will save us. But then they made another statement to follow. But even if he does not save us, they had made us resolve, we will not bow to worship you. You know, that is a place of surrender where you're like, you know what? God, I surrender. I surrender. Even if things don't work out the way I planned, I trust in you. I trust that you have better plans. The fact that you can step into a building and trust that the architect who made that house and the construction workers who built that house, you trust the work of their hands. You trust what they did more than what God does. That you can sleep under a roof, you can sleep in a house and have faith that that house will not collapse. And you sleep peacefully and you wake up and you go about your issues, that it never crosses your mind that the house will collapse. If we can trust things that are made by the hands of men, right? Yet when it comes to the things of God, we find ourselves in a shaky position where we question the intention of God. Is it possible that if we don't get what we want, would we still trust the process? Would we still trust that God has got better things? Would we still trust that God cares for us? You know, when God doesn't give you what you're asking for, what you've been diligently seeking, does he cease to be God just because he did not answer? When things don't work out the way that you wanted, is he going to be will he cease to be the God that you worship? Will he cease to be faithful in what he does? When you're praying for that healing and you don't get it instantly, or you lose a loved one, does he cease to be God? I know there are some places that if somebody touches us, like, don't touch that, don't go there, you know. But does it cancel God because things did not work out the way we planned? There's somebody who understood the mercies of God in the book of 2 Samuel chapter 24, where David went ahead and did something that God did not ask him. When you read the book, you realize David, almost all the times, not almost all the times before he did anything, he inquired of the Lord. He asked of the Lord, are you going to be with us? Are you for this? Is this your will? He inquired of the Lord. But this time, David just woke up and an idea came into his mind and he gave into it. But he decided to go and take census of Israel and Judah. God had not told him to do this. He decided to do it, you know. And after he had done this, the word of the Lord says in verse 10 that David was conscience stricken after he had counted the fighting men, and he said to the Lord, I have sinned greatly in what I have done. Now, Lord, I beg you, take away the guilt of your servant. I have done a very foolish thing. But you know, the next morning, because this is something that God had to execute, kind of to align David not ever to think of such a thing again. God had sent his judgment through the prophet. This is what God told the prophet to go and say. Go and tell David, this is what the Lord says. I'm giving you 3 options because of the sin you had committed. Choose one of them for me to carry out against you. So these are the 3 options. First, shall there come on you 3 years of famine in your land? That was the first judgment. You had to choose one of these. Or 3 months of fleeing from your enemies while they pursue you. Or 3 days of plague in your land. So he was told, now think over it and choose one of these. David really understood the nature of God and he understood the mercy of God. Verse 14 says, David said to God, I am in deep distress. Let us fall into the hands of the Lord, for his mercy is great, but do not let me fall into human hands. David understood that the mercy of God is greater than the judgment of men. Like if men were to judge you, they would outweigh the mercy of God. The Lord is so greatly merciful, and David chose, I would rather fall into the hands of the Lord. You know, where you get to know that even if God judges you, his judgment is still merciful. When you're falling in the Lord's hands is better than being in the hands of men. And when you pray for something and you do not get, it says that his plans that he has for us in the book of Jeremiah, he has plans for good concerning us and plans not to harm us. You know, he has plans to prosper us, to give us a hope and a future. Trust in the Lord that his plans are better than whatever you have wanted. The Lord is faithful. Just surrender whatever it is that you hope in him to give you. He is a faithful God.